Hello and welcome back. My name is Jen with Lodo Family. And I don't know about y'all, but it has been cold and rainy. And really, it should not be cold and rainy at the same time. All I want to do is curl up with a cup of coffee and read a book. Okay, like my energy is gone. So, because of that, I'm not going to call these lazy girl dinners this week, but I will say it is the most tasty for the least amount of effort. So let's take a look at the meal plan this week. Okay, here we go. We have got kind of all the cuisines kind of covered this week. But what's nice is we're going to make some super easy versions of some classic dishes. And I'm also going to give you a couple different scenarios where you can kind of switch things around. And then definitely stay to the end because not only are we doing cookie truffles, but I have some really low cost fruit options this week. So let's look at our grocery list. Now, the first thing that you probably noticed is that there is very little produce on this list. And every year, right about this time of year, it's about the halfway point in November, you will start to notice that there's a lot of produce that all of a sudden is costing way more than it has. It's not inflation, it's not anything like that. What it is it is seasonality. So items like cucumbers, which you can find relatively cheap all the way up until this point, all of a sudden they're no longer 60, 64 cents. They're 98 cents, $1.10. And you'll notice that on a lot of produce because it's just not its normal time. So we are going to rely heavily on some frozen vegetables, as well as a lot of canned vegetables. Now, you will notice that there is a lot of easy items on this pantry list that you may already have. So please double check your pantry, your freezer, and your fridge. And the prices this week are from the Super Walmart in Chicago, Illinois. And our total came out to $67.65, which is really not bad. So let's get into our first meal. I forgot to mention on the last slide that we do assume that you have whatever your preferred cooking oil is and your favorite seasonings. Now, if you go to our website, you can look at all of the slides as well as go ahead and print a free PDF of the grocery list as well as all of the recipes. So, for the first night's dinner, we are going to do a French dip pulled pork. Now, stick with me here. If you are on the Facebook page, you will know that we had a full discussion about French dip and that I actually recently just had this for dinner and it was amazing. So, what we're going to do is we're going to get one of those big packs. It usually has two of the long, skinny tenderloins in it. And usually they kind of weigh between 2.5 pounds. And we're going to do these in the crock pot because, it's just set it and forget it. It's super easy. Now, I really kind of like that oniony flavor without necessarily adding onions. So we're going to use a pack of onion soup mix. And then similar to when we make Mississippi style pot roast, we're just going to chunk the butter of one stick. And so we just sprinkle our onion soup over the pork. We're going to put the butter on, put the lid on, and we're going to cook this. Typically on high, it could be 4 to 6 hours. If you do it on low, it'll take about 8 hours. Now, when we get closer to dinner time, I like to make sweet potato fries. And you can pick whatever shape you like. I usually tend to do more of a traditional fry or do it like a potato wedge. And you just drizzle these with oil and sprinkle with your favorite seasonings. I really like the French fry seasoning. I got it at Big Lots, but I think you can find it at some other stores. And then you can do this in the air fryer. Usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the size and the shape of your potato, or you can do it in the oven. Super easy. Now, when your pork is fully cooked, I like to remove the pork loins, put it in a big bowl, and shred it. Okay? Now, you're going to have a decent amount of liquid in the crock pot, and we're going to use that as our au jus. So don't get rid of that. You're going to need it. So when we pull the pork, I usually just use 2 forks, and then The thing is I kind of squeeze it a little bit to try to get all the excess juice out, because this is going to be on a sandwich. And even though we're going to dip it, we don't want our bread super soggy until it's ready to be soggy. So now, when I did this, I put a little bit of butter on my buns first, and then I topped it with my pulled pork, and then my slice of the Swiss cheese. And then my air fryer has an air broil where it goes up to like temperature 450. And I just did 4 minutes and it was perfectly done. If you're going to do it, you could also do it in the oven, because we've already got the oven on for our sweet potato fries. That's fine. You just want to cook it enough to where the cheese is melted and the bread gets a little toasty. So then you put your lid back on, and then you just have like a little ramekin or a little bowl that has that au jus from the crock pot, and you just dip it in and eat it, and it is so amazing. And then we're just going to do some basic green beans with this. So that means you can just microwave them and kind of keep them on the more plain side. You can saute them on the stove, whichever you like. Now, after this meal, all of the pulled pork, because it's going to make a good amount, okay? All the pulled pork and all of the au jus mix that's left over, you're going to put that in a Tupperware and you're going to save it, because we're going to turn this into a completely different dish. So let's keep going. Yay! I finally warmed up and was able to take my gigantic sweater off. So I'm very excited. Okay, so this next dish is super, super easy. We've actually made a similar version in the crock pot, and we've made one where you use this, where you bake it in the oven. And so tonight we're going to do one that really takes minimal cooking, and it's just going to be on the stove top. Now we're going to use a rotisserie chicken, one that's already cooked. Now at Walmart, if you buy one of their hot rotisserie chickens, it's typically between $5 and $6. If you buy one that's already been chilled, and it's usually in a slightly different section, you can get these for like $3. And to me, I very rarely buy one and eat one the same night, so I don't necessarily mind that it's already been chilled. Now, just recently, I cooked a whole chicken in the air fryer, kind of had that rotisserie feel, and then I pulled all the chicken off, and I didn't get a chance to use it all, so I put it in the freezer. This is a great one to use just regular already cooked chicken, freezer chicken, and in fact, you could even do this with chicken nuggets. My kids have, we made chicken nuggets, we had a bunch left over, and I've used it to make this. So any of those options will work. Basically, we're just going to make some very basic white rice. That's 1 cup of white rice, 2 cups of water. You bring it to a boil, you put the lid on, you drop it to low, and you just let it simmer for 15 to 20 minutes until it's fully cooked. Maybe you have a rice cooker, even easier. Now we're going to take the chicken. You could use like shredded chicken, but I kind of prefer to like cut it up into like a pretty large chunks or a dice. Totally fine. Now in like a little saucepan, we're going to combine our barbecue sauce, orange marmalade, and soy sauce. I use a whisk and I just keep mixing this because at first it's very, very clumpy. As it heats up and it gets hot, you'll notice as you're whisking it, it gets really nice and smooth. So once you get to that point, you can turn off the heat. Now, I really, really, really love these stir-fry veggies. It comes in 3 different versions in the Walmart brand. The part that I think I love the most is these are 20 ounces, which is a lot of vegetables. So normally in some of the other stores, you see stir-fry veggies, they're only 12 ounces or 14 ounces. This is a lot of veggies. So in this scenario, I'm just going to throw it in the microwave. You usually steam it. It usually takes, I think, 4 or 5 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I have like a big mixing bowl. I'm going to put my stir-fry veggies once they've been steamed. I'm going to throw my cooked chicken in there. And then I'm going to take that sauce that we made on the stove, and it's gotten kind of smooth and it's still hot. I'm going to pour it in there, and I am just going to mix it all together until everything is kind of well combined and well coated in that sauce. And then we're going to serve that over rice. Now, the alternate to that is You can use like a giant skillet and put your stir-fry veggies in there, whether they're frozen or if you get some from like the produce section where they're already cut, and you just steam them the um, in the big skillet with the lid on. And then once it's ready, you can take that off and then pour your sauce in there and kind of mix it all together. So either way will work. This is just one of those that super, super quick. You don't have much time, but lots and lots of flavor. Now, I know that everybody has their own personal preferences when it comes to making chili. Now, this chili is made with ground pork this week because Walmart happened to have this ground pork on sale that was cheaper than the regular ground beef. Now, you could also use ground turkey, you can use venison, you can use any ground meat you like. The ground pork just happened to be the cheapest one that we could get that was like a pound and a half. So we're going to cook that off. We're going to drain off the excess grease. We're going to combine it with some tomato sauce, 2 cans of drained kidney beans. I also like to rinse them just so they don't have any metallic taste, and then a pack of chili seasoning. Now, if you already have chili powder, you would just use maybe 2 tablespoons. Really, it's going to depend on how you like your chili. If you like it more on the mild side, if you like it a little bit more spicy. Now, I really love sweet potatoes, and if you haven't had chili with sweet potatoes, it's just an overall really good taste. Now, you could do the sweet potatoes in 2 different ways. I like to bake them in the microwave just like I would a regular potato. I poke some holes in them with a fork. I place them on a plate, heat them up for 3 minutes, flip them, another 3 minutes. And I just keep repeating that 3-minute cycle until they're soft enough. Now, if your potatoes are fairly large, or if you're just not really wanting to do a baked potato, you can also cut this into large chunks and roast them in the oven. That is going to take a little bit longer. Usually, depending on how many sweet potatoes you do, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes. So the first option is definitely going to be the quickest one. The second option is still going to be yummy, but it is going to take a little bit more time. Now, as with any chili, you can always kind of mix and match some things. Maybe you want to do a can of black beans instead of 2 cans of kidney beans. Maybe you have some frozen peppers that are in your freezer. Totally use that. If you like it to be more chunky on the tomato side, instead of tomato sauce, you could easily use some diced tomatoes and some tomato paste. So I would really look at what you already have at home and adjust it to what will work best for you. And then this, because we're going to have that red chili with the red beans and we're going to have the orange sweet potatoes, really needed that pop of color. So I'm going with broccoli. It's one of my favorite vegetables, and honestly, it goes with everything. But if that's not your thing, pick another vegetable. Now, this is another one that I recently tried for the first time. And so if you're on the Facebook page, you will see where I made this for dinner. I believe it was last week. So this is my version of Brunswick stew. Now, I live in the South, but I'm not actually a huge fan of lima beans or okra. And I don't have like any specific food rules where, everything has to be authentic or everything has to be by the book. I go with what I like and what I know is easy to make. So in this case, we're going to take that leftover pulled pork with all the juices. We're just going to dump that into a big pot, and we're going to add a can of mixed vegetables and a can of corn. These 2 we will want to drain. Now, I have seen 2 different versions of mixed vegetables in a can. There's one where it's like green beans and corn and carrots and lima beans. That one's fine. There's another one where it doesn't have lima beans and it has little like cubes of potatoes. I actually prefer that one, but pick whichever one works for you. And the reason I like to use the canned in these is because it kind of gives you that texture of a soup that has been cooking for a very, very long time. Whereas this way, we're only going to cook it for about 15 to 20 minutes. If you wanted to, you could easily use frozen mixed vegetables, but just know that that has kind of a tougher texture, but it's really up to you. Now, we're also going to add diced tomatoes. Now, this is the one that you're not going to drain. You want that tomato juice. If you wanted to kind of up the tomato flavor, I added V8 juice. Yes, it's kind of expensive, but we had some already at the house, and that was just an easy one to add. Now, depending on how much of the pork juices that you had from the first night, you may need to supplement some liquid here. You could just add water. You could add any kind of broth that you like, maybe a chicken or a beef broth or even a veggie broth. And then part of what's going to give us that kind of Brunswick stew flavor is we're going to add about a quarter cup of barbecue sauce. Now, I kind of eyeball this, but if you really, really like barbecue, you could definitely use more. If you're not a huge fan of barbecue sauce, you could use a little less. It's kind of like chili. How strong do you want it to be? And then we're going to put this all in the pot. We're going to bring it up to like a boil, and we're just going to let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes on medium heat. Now, while that's going, that's about how much time it takes to make cornbread. Now, I haven't figured out how to make cornbread in my air fryer, so I'm definitely going to make it in my oven. There's a couple different things you can add to like a standard corn muffin mix if you would like. Even if you don't want to make muffins, you could just make it like cornbread in like an 8x8 dish. Totally up to you. One trick that I do like to use is sometimes I will put cream corn in my muffin mix just to give it a little bit more texture. I do like to add maybe a little cheese, maybe some fresh or pickled jalapenos. You can do whatever you like. Now, here's the fun part about Brunswick stew. When it is served with chili, a lot of people will put either a muffin or a chunk of cornbread and you pour the stew over the top. You could serve the cornbread on the side, or I like to crumble the cornbread on top. Any of those options will work. Now, I am a huge fan of like the spinach artichoke dip, and I love those flavors. And this is kind of where this dish came from. We are going to make some mini chicken and artichoke pizzas. Now, if you are not a fan of artichokes, you can easily swap that part out for either canned spinach, frozen spinach, fresh spinach, or just any vegetable you like. I just happen to really like this flavor. And we're going to use the rest of our rotisserie chicken. You just need about a cup to a cup and a half. I can do this with either shredded or chopped. It's totally up to you. And this is so unbelievably simple. We're just going to combine our chicken, 3/4 of a cup of ranch dressing, our chopped veggies, and 3/4 of a cup of mozzarella. I just mix it together with a spoon, and then I take that same spoon and I portion it out onto each of my English muffins. Then I take the 1/4 cup of mozzarella that's left, and I just top each one. Now, I usually have Parmesan cheese in my fridge all the time, whether it's fresh Parmesan or like the powdery grated stuff. And there is a little bit of a saltiness to that. And so if you have it and you add it on top, I think it just kicks it up a little bit, but it's not necessary. And not everybody likes Parmesan cheese, I found out. So you can leave that off. Now, I do like to add just a little bit of Italian seasoning blend to the top. And the reason I don't mix it in, because I don't really want it to compete with the ranch or the artichokes. So you do that. Now, keep in mind, these artichokes are packed in water. So I do drain the water off. And even though they're quartered, they're still kind of large. So I go ahead and chop those up as well. So I hope you really enjoy this one, because this one I eat for lunch for like a week straight and I love it. Now, we made a pretty big batch of chili the other night, and so we're going to have some left over. Now, we're going to take that leftover chili and we are going to do a baked chili cheese dogs. Now, this is really fun and you can get a little creative here. Basically, we're going to take our 8 hot dogs and we are going to roll them up with flour tortillas. Now, inside that flour tortilla, you could add a little bit of the chili and a little bit of the cheese, or you could just leave it with just hot dog and just tortilla. Now, the trick is we want to use a greased casserole dish. We want to make sure once we roll our tortillas that we place it seam side down so it doesn't kind of explode open. Now, It's going to be similar to like an enchilada. So we're going to top all of this with our leftover chili. Now, sometimes when you make chili, it's kind of thick, okay? Sometimes chili's really thin. Either way, if yours is on the thicker side, I would add a little bit of water and go ahead and microwave it, because sometimes once it heats up, it gets a little bit thinner. So once it's at a consistency that's easy to pour, you're going to pour that over the top of your rolled hot dogs, and then we're going to put this in the oven, and we're going to bake it. Usually it takes about 20 minutes. We're really just trying to get everything hot, and then we're going to top it with shredded cheese, put it back in until it gets all nice and bubbly, and then we'll serve that. And I just usually pick a simple vegetable. In this case, it's sweet peas. Now, if you had some sour cream or some onions or any other chili toppings that you like, you could easily add that on top of this as well. Personally, I'm going to throw an avocado in with this because I don't need much of an excuse to add an avocado to eat them. Now, I mentioned before that I really love desserts where it's more of a formula and you can kind of mix and match and create a whole new dessert using the same basic functions. And this is basically what that is. So we need 20 sandwich cookies. If you're not familiar with that term, that's going to be like your basic Oreos, okay? Now, of course, Oreos are kind of expensive. Great Value does have, Walmart has a Great Value brand. I think it's called Twist and Shout. Not sure why. They also have, they're just called like sandwich cookies. And like at the Dollar Tree, they have, I think it's called Little Dutch Made cookies. But a lot of times they come in multiple flavors. So you don't necessarily have to use Oreos. You could use any of these. In fact, this is a really fun one to do with the flavored ones. I'm talking like the strawberry cream ones, the lemon cream ones. Really, I just like using any cookies that are available. And like I said, you can totally mix this up. Now, this does require a food processor. So we're going to throw those cookies in there. We're going to pulse it until it just becomes like crumbs. Okay. Then we're going to add 4 ounces of softened cream cheese. Once again, when I say softened, I don't mean a little softened. I mean really, really softened. And I just kind of cut this up into like 6 or 8 chunks, and I add it into the food processor, and then I pulse it, and then you'll notice that everything will just become very well combined. So then I dump the whole mixture into a large bowl, and just using your hands, just kind of massage it and knead it, and you'll notice that it's all going to kind of come together, and you're going to be able to start forming some balls. So now, when I make this, I can usually make about 12 to 18 balls, depending on the size, but that's really up to you. If you like big balls versus small balls, whatever. I have little kids, so I go small. Now, once we have these, we are going to melt our chocolate. Now, whenever you temper chocolate to coat something, you're going to need to add some type of oil or fat. Now, you can use just some straight veggie or canola oil. You just need about a tablespoon, or you can use coconut oil. That one actually works really well, and none of those will you actually taste the oil, but it helps when the chocolate gets melted and then it kind of sets. It has that glossy look. If you skip the oil part, sometimes it won't set all the way, and if it does, it kind of has like a matte finish to it. It just doesn't look super appealing. So I like to use a toothpick because we always have a bunch of them. I'm just going to take my ball, I'm going to poke it with a toothpick, and I'm going to roll it in the chocolate, and then I put it on a piece of parchment paper. And I put that either on a big plate or on like a baking sheet. And then once I've dipped all of the balls, I'm going to put that in the fridge. Usually just 5-10 minutes is all it takes. Now, before you put it in the fridge and the chocolate's still a little wet, this is a chance for you to get a little creative. If you have any sprinkles in your baking cabinet, I just recently realized I had a bunch of these like colored sugars. They're like little crystals and stuff. If you want to just make this a little bit more holiday fun, if you have some extra cookies, you could just crumble those up in the food processor to just the crumbs and then sprinkle that. If you are going to do like a lemon flavor or a strawberry flavor, You can skip the milk chocolate and do white chocolate. So there's just 1,000 different variations of this, and they all give you that like really hearty truffle feel. And this is one that I really like to make around the holidays because everybody loves it and it's perfect for a potluck. Now, I've had a couple people ask me about that I always serve fruit on my personal meals. And in the past, when I tried to include fruit on some of the meals, a lot of people would say, well, I don't like that fruit. And so it was something that was causing more stress than helpfulness. So I decided that we're going to just give you kind of the highlight reel of the fruits that are on sale. So at this Walmart, of course, bananas were going to be low cost. Mangoes were on sale, fresh cranberries were on sale, pomegranates, you don't see those all the time, and that was a decent price. Pineapple was actually a decent price, and so was raspberries and blackberries. So, as the seasons change, of course, fruits change. So, always take a look at your prices when you're looking at the sales flyer for your local stores. Always check the produce section because those are going to be the fruits that are in season and most likely to be the cheapest price. Well, if you made it all the way this far, I just want to say thank you. I truly enjoy doing these menus every week, not just because I I like meal planning, but because I like the fact that this inspires people, this helps them make their own meal plans. Maybe they get a new idea. And you know what? Sometimes just being creative and just trying to think of new things is difficult. And I get that. And I'm not always creative. If you've seen, I've been in like meal ruts and stuff where I just wasn't feeling creative. And that's okay because we just kind of go through little phases. So I just want to thank you guys for being here and for watching the video. Don't forget to head over to the website, sign up for the email newsletter, grab your free PDF of the grocery list and all the recipes. If you don't already check us out on Facebook, just search Lodo Family and you'll see all of our content there. I'm going to put a link down below to our meal planning group. And then last but not least, we just started a new podcast. This podcast is all about food news. And some food news is kind of controversial maybe, or I really think that food news, it affects people in different ways. So my friend and I, who have very different perspectives, are looking at food stories at different angles. So come hang out with us. I'll put a link down below. And we want to hear what your thoughts are too. So make sure you leave your opinions as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. And hopefully it warms up a little bit because I am not truly ready for like super cold winter. So bye bye.